When my Ford rep told me the only available vehicle she had for me right now was the F-150 King Ranch Edition, I thought, you know what, there is no way I could do another mass market, mainstream car review right now. I just don't have it in me. And part of this is because I just feel so inundated by all these products that are just quantity over quality right now. So watered down, so generic. That's why I came out here to the middle of nowhere, to get a fresh perspective, change in scenery. I've started to stray away from talking about the exterior of vehicles in my recent reviews because it's so subjective. In the case of trucks, there's brand fanaticism that is just insane. You're either gonna like this or you're not. I'll let you decide again. When I started filming this truck, I didn't really realize how much chrome was on here until I did that because I cannot hide a camera around here. Now, hopefully if you're looking at a truck like this, you're really thinking about it to use it as a utility vehicle, right? So as I started putting my bike in here and all my camera gear, I started looking at some of this stuff and how easy it was to use. In this model, the rear liftgate can be operated via remote control, which is awesome. That said, if you have to open it manually, it's so simple. You could do it with a couple fingers. It's easy open, easy close. And then, of course, getting in it, they include this handy little ladder in the back, and the engineers decided they were gonna have a little fun and put a pole. So I knew exactly what they were going for here. When I was done with that, I went right to the side steps on either side to get into the bed. Now, once these things eject, it's like getting into a space shuttle, but pushing them back in takes a little bit of manly strength, so I need to hit the gym for that. The bed of this truck does not have a bed liner, and the metal inside is aluminum, and you can tell there's some flex, and personally, if I was gonna use this for what this truck is really designed for, I would suggest a bed liner, spray-in or whatever you use, because I could see this getting torn up really quick. No luxury truck would be complete without automatic and hidden running boards. You open the door, the running board comes out. You close it and it disappears into the body of the car. Now this solves two huge problems that we have. One is you don't need a mountain goat to get inside this truck. The second one is if Larry at work gives you a treasure map and you find at the end that the treasure map says that there's a bag of hot dogs in this car and you come running at it full speed, you're not gonna split your leg in half trying to get at the wieners. So I really like that. When we got under the Ford F-150, we were a little concerned that one of these plastic panels under here was a little loose. This could be a catastrophic event if this panel fell down on the road. So what kind of tool do you have?
We got a 750-pound impact, okay, reduced to a 1/4 inch drive 8mm chrome socket.
Okay, that's perfect for an impact.
Properly tighten it.
What do you think?
It's tough. I'd buy one.
Oh, you'd really buy one?
Hell yeah, I'd love to spend $1,000 a month on a truck like this.
Well, what would you tow?
I wouldn't be able to afford anything to tow if I had this.
There are some little things here from the engineers of Ford that they've done to the front suspension, and it's really not much from the previous truck, but the stamped steel on the lower arms is a thinner gauge metal than it was before. They've reinforced some areas and then thinned it out to save weight. The damper is actually mounted slightly differently from the previous generation, but other than that, the front of this truck is almost identical to the previous F-150. So it is hard to tell under here until you know some of the things that the engineers had done. And this steel frame, these actual beams that run along the front and back of the car, they used to be hydroformed steel that was just one solid thickness all the way back. And obviously, for efficiency's sake, it doesn't have to be the same thickness of steel. So if some parts of this metal are thinner in certain areas and thicker in others where it needs rigidity, and that's how they're able to save weight, up to 70 pounds in the frame rail. In the rear of the F-150, they've made the most amount of suspension changes here. So they've done essentially two things. You have shorter leaf springs, and you have revised dampers that are now staggered instead of just placed outboard. So what do the leaf springs do?
Reduce squat while you're hauling.
Okay, that's a good thing.
While you're launching.
While you're launching with the trailer.
While you're plowing.
And the dampers, putting them in a staggered position, what does that do?
No wheel hop. I don't believe it. I'm gonna go try it.
Okay, we're gonna have to test that.
Oh, freaking neutral drop it.
Just neutral.
And full boost.
What's full boost?
I don't know. What is it? Probably 3 pounds?
No, most of the time it's at 13 PSI. So Scott, we're dealing with you know what, this is actually the highest end motor you can get for this car. It's above the V8. So the 3.5 liter twin turbo, what kind of power are we looking at?
365 horsepower.
Yeah, what RPMs?
5,000.
Okay, what's the torques?
420. 420 pounds-feet.
Wow.
No kidding.
What type?
2,500 RPMs. They're just getting in diesel range.
Jeez.
Low grunt.
That is low grunt. And according to the engineers, because of the way everything is computer controlled, the ECU pulls timing, obviously, so you can get all that at regular gasoline. You can get those horsepower numbers. Now, if you use premium, you can get an extra 10 to 15 horsepower. And probably if you're towing, you'd probably opt to fill it up with premium to get that extra grunt.
Let's say we put it on the dyno and find out.
We're going to the dyno. No, we're not.
4-wheel dyno.
No.
Do the 4-wheel.
No, I want to only do front wheel dyno. So we can sit here and talk about horsepower, and we can stroke each other over the torques.
It's all about power to weight ratio, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, and obviously if you're watching this video, it's clear that you probably know all about this truck that you need to know about aluminum and weight savings. But just for comparative purposes, what's the curb weight of this car? This is like the most decked out, one of the heaviest models.
4,800 pounds.
Okay. What's the Tundra weigh?
5,800 pounds.
58? That's where this truck...
Crazy.
It's a huge, huge difference. And that's where the innovation comes into play here. Their huge focus wasn't just throw on some aluminum doors and hood and kind of half-ass do it. This car, their truck, is aluminum from the front to the back. Hood, fenders, door panels, box is all aluminum. The interior, everything is aluminum here.
It's just amazing they would try it on something like this first.
I know.
Rather than the Fiesta or something a little tiny.
You know, all these you had the capability of doing aluminum frames and body panels, but it was so expensive when you had limited production cars. So Ford took one of the highest volume cars in the world. They sell 700,000 F-150s a year. Well, not F-150s, F-Series trucks, and about 500,000 are F-150s. That's a staggering amount of trucks. So to be able to mass produce aluminum body the way they have is going to drive costs down and development costs for their future cars. You know, they're lightweight cars.
It's going to take a few years to see that.
Yeah, sure. And work out the bugs in manufacturing. You know, and people talk about, you go on forums and comments how the doors don't line up and the panels aren't lining up over once the frame starts twisting. I mean, these are manufacturing improvements they're going to figure out and improve upon over the life cycle of this truck. I mean, it's impossible to get it right completely, but I really like the fact that they put all this development money in here.
When you see version 1.0, you kind of go like that and go for something that's version 0.5 somewhere else for the time being, or
right.
wait.
Yeah.
That's just my own opinion.
Now, at the start of this video, there was a lot of trepidation on my end because I just thought this was going to be another mass-produced, boring truck for the masses. And after spending some time underneath it, doing some research, looking at all the engineering that went into it, it's really the next generation. This is not just another rehash of the same car over and over again. Now, in some parts there are, because a lot of things work for the F-150, but the things that they did change are so significant that I've grown to respect and enjoy driving this truck a lot. So now the transmission, you have a manual mode, which, it actually holds gears and you can shift. Then there's a button at the bottom that's for tow haul and for sport mode. And sport mode just kind of makes it, the transmission hold revs more. It will actually hold a gear for you. And then when you're in manual mode, it will also allow you to shift manually only here. So let's go through some of the turns and see how this is. It's fast. There's a level of kind of refinement to this motor that I almost want to say it's like a V8, but it's not a V8. This is kind of the future for Ford and a lot of companies, is to take these smaller displacement motors, throw turbos on them, and give you that, bigger displacement feel. Give you that bigger displacement feel without having the penalty in fuel economy. And that's exactly what this truck does, because usually when I'm driving like a normal person, I'm getting anywhere between 17 and 20 miles per gallon. And I'd say I've probably stuck around like 18 to 19 my whole drive. Now, when I'm idling and beating on it, you're gonna drop significantly. I think the worst you can expect is around 13 to 14 miles per gallon, and that's probably where you're gonna settle to for towing. All right, let's take a look at this truck's straight line acceleration. Oh my God. I know I just did a Subaru WRX fan there, but it's so ridiculous because the truck has so much balls, there's not a lot of grip, it's so floaty feeling, you don't really know where it's going to end up when you're mashing the throttle. But that's the thing. Rear wheel drive and a lot of horsepower can equal a lot of fun. This truck, the higher end V6 EcoBoost motors have order content, sound symposers, sound generator, and it's a digital sound that's pumped into the cabin through the speakers to give it a V8 or a tougher sound. And it is really cheesy because there's not a lot of engine noise with this motor at all in this truck, and it's so quiet. I'm not sure that digital sound reproduction is the answer. I like the idea of sound tubes where they actually pump induction noise into the cabin more so than the digital sound through the speakers, because there's something weird, there's something wrong about the way that it sounds. The transmission, even in sport mode, it's good, it's smooth. I like this transmission better than the Tundra I was in. I don't think it's as sporty or responsive as the Colorado's trans. It doesn't really rev match downshift, and it's certainly not fast to respond. There's that lag I'm talking about when you're manually shifting. Oh, this thing is a load. But you know what, in the steering feel, you don't feel the weight of the truck in the steering feel at all, which is really good. This truck has a lightness to it in the steering and in the overall feel of the front end of it. That's one of the better suits. Clearly, this is a long, wide, tall, heavy vehicle, and there's only so much you can do to control the body roll and the pitching of the truck, and this is not to get around corners fast. This is set up to tow, this is set up to haul, and one of its best suits is actual ride quality. They have the spring rates set up in the back and the front and the suspension dialed in to really give you a balance of comfort and compliance over almost all pavement. When you go off, like on gravel or any type of off-road situation, it's like nothing in this truck. Now, the trade-off is, of course, you're not going to get instantaneous steering response. You're not going to get sharp handling. But for the segment, for what it is, the front end, the way this car changes direction, the way that you can steer, the steering feel is actually surprisingly good. But again, it's a big vehicle. And even though they've cut the weight, you can't hide it. You just can't do that. This is one of the most comfortable vehicles I've ever been in, and a lot of it has to do with the seats. These are amazingly comfortable seats. The position's great, and if you can tell from the camera angle, I have this lens at the widest setting, and in this truck, you can see how much angle this covers. You see how much space is around me. That is just because this interior is so large. One of the good things about this F-150 is actually ergonomics. Everything is laid out extremely well and accessible. Like your four-wheel high and four-wheel low selector switch, it's not hidden somewhere. You don't have to fight for it. It is right here, right where you want it. And in terms of a truck, this is an important toggle for you if you're actually using it. Your window switches, your door switches, and the best and my favorite part is actually the door handles on this car, because the door handle is right where you grab the handle to open and close the door, and all you have to do is pinch. It's one of the best door handle designs I've seen in quite a while. And of course, you have all this good inside this truck, all the good ergonomics, comfort, and then the infotainment. One of the worst parts, and I'll go over that more in the interior segment. Over choppy pavement, really good. There's really not any, bad pavement is not an issue in this truck. You don't have to worry about that. You know, there's no time where you're like, well, you know, I'm in for a bad ride or a choppy ride. No, you're never in for a bad or choppy ride in this truck. There's two other features worth talking about in here, and this is especially good if you're not used to piloting big vehicles. This 360 camera. And what's nice about it is it just doesn't bring up the camera when you're in reverse. If you're in drive and you want to park, you hit the 360 button, and on the screen it will show you what's in front of you, what's on the side of you, what's on the back. And this is particularly helpful if you're in a tight parking space, so you don't look like a douche parked over two parking spaces, or you're not 20 feet away from the curb in front of you and you know exactly where you are in the back. It makes parking so simple and takes that anxiety out of driving a big truck. Now, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to argue about what the best motor is for a platform like this or a big vehicle. And I've been in enough cars and trucks now to say that I personally prefer larger, naturally aspirated V8s or V6s. And there's just something about the smoothness factor of having a naturally aspirated car that I like, and the linear power delivery that you get at the high end. Now, who cares about what I think? Because the truth is, Ford has you covered in every option here. You have a naturally aspirated V6, you have two twin turbocharged V6, and a V8 option. So regardless of what type of person you are, you're gonna have a motor that's gonna suit you. The only thing you don't have is a 4-cylinder, and honestly, that would be the worst thing in the world besides maybe eating cotton candy and then washing it down with a 2-liter bottle of Coke. When I got into the King Tut for the first time, I thought to myself, wow, this thing is just ridiculous. From the technology they've packed in here, to the wood, to the seats, to the leather, and even the color. But you know what? As much as I kind of say that in a good and bad way, this is a luxury truck. Now, it's got a truck interior, but it is definitely on par with most of the luxury cars, if not better, that are out there. Now, if I found this feature in most cars, I would be like, no way. Ridiculous. Don't want it. Don't care. It's stupid. But in this truck, it makes total sense. And I love it. It's one of my favorite features. And that is the massaging seats. It has all these air bladders in here which massage your butt, your thigh, your lower back, your middle back, and it's all customizable on this touchscreen. You can adjust the intensity where you want it. The air bladders will go like this and move up and down. It stays on while you're driving, and this makes this one of the more enjoyable cars, or trucks rather, to drive for long distances. You just don't get the fatigue you would in a normal seat. Infotainment, or Ford Sync. Supposedly Ford is going to be upgrading the software, a complete redo of what they have in here next year. And I really hope the existing owners of these trucks and cars that have this system can get an update. There are some cool things about Sync that they do, like consolidating a lot of info on one screen. But a lot of what I like about it ends there, because this is indeed one of the worst infotainment systems I've used ever. And it's mostly because there is an insane amount of lag between your inputs. Case in point is the HVAC dial. If I want to turn the temperature, a lot of times I'm turning it to the left to go cooler. Well, I don't know what the temperature is because it's on the stupid touch screen, right? And you're sitting there waiting for it to tell you what the temperature is, and it doesn't tell you. It's slow to respond to your input. So by the time I get there, I'm like, well, did it adjust? And I start turning it back the other way, and it's still going back down and then coming back up. And even when I'm not touching, it's still trying to figure out what I did. And that kind of sums up the whole operation of this system. Now, Ford Sync in here, you have these 4 panels. Basically, that's your home screen where you have your phone, your music, your HVAC, and kind of navigation in one corner. Now, in terms of going to the settings mode, you have one of the coolest features of this car, and they do this in other Fords, is the ambient lighting control. But the use of it in this car is really good because you have floor lighting, door handle lighting, you have cup holder lighting, mid-dash lighting, and all of that is configurable because it's LED. Now, I don't know that the LEDs are super high quality because the variation of the color choices are not that great, but the fact that you can customize that and even turn it off, it works really well in this truck. It's really cool for this type of vehicle without being overly gimmicky. Now, luckily, the HVAC system has physical controls down here, which are kind of out of line of sight. So it's going to take some time to get used to where the physical placement it is, and they're kind of all jammed together here. But the disappointing part is, again, you can't really control the temperature without the touchscreen because you really don't know what the temperature is until you're looking here. This is a luxury truck interior, but it's still a truck interior, and I've said that before. As much as I like the comfort factor, I could go on a trip anywhere in the US with this. Long distance, I'd be totally comfortable. But when it comes down to attention to detail, I still feel this overwhelmingly truckish facade in here. You have these really, really cheap feeling, ruggedized hard plastics in here. And the good part is it's in the places where you're going to be bumping and grinding. It's by your feet, by your legs, where you're possibly going to damage the material. So it's kind of smart. It just doesn't look all that great. You have this plastic trim, silver aluminum look trim. It doesn't look aluminum at all. It's obviously hard plastics. There are soft touch materials on here, like the dashboard. You have this pleatherish surface with a contrasting stitching. You have a little bit of chrome, a tasteful use of chrome, so I like that. Also, you have soft touch materials where you want them. Some cars don't get that right. They do it right here. Your armrests are soft touch leather on the door on the door area where your elbows are resting, and on this King Ranch edition, you actually have a really, really well padded armrest. I'm going to say this straight off. If you can't fit something in here, you got a serious problem because there is just an excessive amount of storage in this truck. You have 6 cup holders, these door pockets that'll fit most anything. There's door pockets under the handles. Your center storage in your center armrest is ridiculous. I mean, it is so big. I've said this about other cars and trucks that have space for a small child. This, you could literally put a small child in there. The glove box is average, but it makes up for it in so many other spaces. My buddy at work, he's like, tell me about the occupancy space. I said, well, Ford designed this for either an elephant or a gorilla because you could fit both in the front. There's so much space. The back, well, you can flip those seats up in the back, up or down. When they're down, you could fit 3 monster adults back there easily. Now, when you flip those seats up, it just turns into a straight-up romper room. You could have a housewarming party, you could have a Euro rave in there, and my personal favorite is I turned it into a step aerobics program. I could fly through the back of that cab with no fear of cracking my head apart on the roofline. There's just so much space. The gauge cluster has this large LCD in the middle. It's a multifunction display. Jumping through the menus can be kind of arduous. It's a little bit ridiculous how much configuration you can do. But if you're towing and hauling, you're going to get all the information that you possibly want on here, and along with analog gauges, because they kept analog tachometer and analog speedometer. So everything else is just kind of configurable. So you have a boost gauge, you have oil pressure, coolant temperature. You can have your towing panel to show you your G-forces and your level and all that stuff. This is a really, really well thought out digital cluster for somebody that's actually using this truck for what it was designed for, and that is towing and hauling. So I give them great credit here for that. Aesthetically, it's very truckish, of course, but it works as well as you could expect it to work. The one feature that really surprised me in here was the panoramic sunroof. When this thing opens up all the way, there's so much glass in here it feels like a high-rise building. It makes it so much more open that I can't even explain. It's essentially a convertible in here because the whole roof is glass and it goes all the way back to the back passenger seats. Now the thing is this shade takes forever to go back. I mean, there are convertible tops that go down faster than this shade does, to put that in perspective. Overall, this interior is really what makes the truck. It just has everything that you want and a lot of things that you don't want or you don't need. Again, my big problem with a lot of the tech is the fact that the cost of replacement is going to be so ridiculous once you get out of warranty. Now, if you're just buying this truck and trading it in or leasing it, just ignore that. But if you're going to own this long term, just be aware of all the technology in here. So in conclusion, whether you're a truck person, a Ford person, it doesn't really matter. It's immaterial because Ford was able to do something here that nobody else has done or doesn't really have the balls to do, or of course the capital, and that is invest in an all aluminum structure on a mainstream mass market high volume vehicle. Now, in terms of this truck, some people may want to wait until they get the manufacturing improvements in place, while others may just want to go right into this vehicle. If you're that type of person, this will not be a mistake. The benefits are, clearly, Ford is going to have a massive advantage in mid-size, compact cars and even sports cars, because we all know weight is the enemy.